AskReddit. Serious. What's the most paranormal thing that's ever happened to you? Hearing the sound of change getting stacked up and knocked over on my desk, repeatedly. It usually lasts for about 10 minutes or so, a couple times a month. Crazy demon tree story. Let me preface this by saying I am one of the most skeptical people you'll ever meet. I'm not religious. I don't believe in ghosts or aliens, in the come to earth/abductions/etc. sense. There's probably a good chance there's life out there somewhere in the vastness of space, or any of that. This is the weirdest thing I've ever encountered, and I have no real logical explanation for it. No drugs or booze were involved. My friends and I went camping up in the White Mountains of NH most summers in middle and high school and a few years after, till life happened and we all went our ways. Now, being a bunch of unorganized teen boys, man-children, we always took forever to get in gear and actually get going, usually not leaving southern MA where we lived until late afternoon, early evening. One year we got up there about 10 p.m. or so, and decided rather than hike into the woods we'd just sort of camp, crash out in the parking lot and hike in the AM. After a bit of unwinding and some food, everyone went to bed except for me and one other dude. We ended up wandering over to a small wooden footbridge over a river. Was a perfectly clear night filled with stars and a fairly bright moon, and we were shooting the breeze for a good couple hours about all sorts of stuff, movies, games, life, etc., etc. Had to be well after midnight by this point. As we were chatting, we both got this creepy feeling of something being there, and it was sinister. Looking at the far end of the bridge, there was this massive, dead tree, no leaves, just clawing branches, silhouetted against the sky. We both were like, man, I swear that tree is creeping me out, but that's silly, right? At first we tried to dismiss it as silly, but both of us kept feeling more and more unnerved until I finally was like, screw this, I'm a grown man, I'm not afraid of a damn tree, I'ma walk over there. I get like 2/3 RDS of the way across the bridge and it feels like something reached in and grabbed my pounding heart. Just went totally ice cold. I backed up and was like, yeah, I'm afraid of a tree. I seriously think I'm not coming back if I go over there. We retreated from the bridge and decided to go to bed back in the sleeping bags by the car. Next morning, after breakfast, we decide to hike into the trail by going across that bridge. Halfway across, my friend freezes. Dude. I look across the bridge. It's a clearing. There's no trees there. My husband and I were having dinner at a very small restaurant in the basement of a 16th century Amsterdam canal house, and there was a single lit candle on the table. In the middle of eating, the candlestick and its base flies off our table onto the floor, as if someone had knocked it very hard with their hand. The waitress turns around and asks if we did that, and we say no. We all get very creeped out and nervously laugh. Food was great, though. So about 6 months after I bought our house, I started noticing something odd. Every once in a while I would catch sight of something out of the corner of my eye and always assume it was my cat, since it was the same size, shape, and moved like a cat. However, I would realize a few seconds later that my cat was in the yard or another room. I would try to look back, but nothing was ever there. It was so quick I always dismissed it. Once, at night, I saw it on the ceiling and I about had a heart attack. I also would hear things in the house. I thought my husband was doing the dishes due to the clinking in the sink, but then I would realize he was in the bedroom and the kitchen was empty. It took about a year for my husband and I to start wondering aloud if we were actually seeing things or if something was up. Turns out he was seeing stuff too, just little flashes here and there. My husband said he heard some stuff too on his days off when no one was home. The biggest moment was when I woke up in the middle of the night and saw my cat curled up on my side table. I heard him purring. His fur looked darker and his purr was lower, but I was half asleep and didn't notice. I went to the bathroom and on my way I passed my cat sleeping in the hallway. It actually took me a few seconds, but I literally felt my chest turn cold. I went back into my bedroom and saw that the bedside table was empty. We're pretty sure we got a cat ghost in our house. The only thing I know about the previous owner was that he was put into a mental hospital. I have had to route a bunch of paperwork back to him over the years because his affairs were very clearly not taken care of when he was hospitalized. My theory is that he had a cat that got lost in the shuffle and it's waiting for him to come back. From pretty much the first night after my dad died, I started seeing him in my dreams. I didn't think anything of it at first because I figured that's a perfectly reasonable subconscious response to losing a loved one. The weird thing though was that he looked seriously real. Everything else in my dream would have that strange, cartoonish vibe to it. Yet I could look at my dad and count the individual hairs in his mustache and on his head. In one of the dreams, I became lucid and realized I was asleep. I asked my dad point blank, "Are you visiting me or is this just a figment of my imagination? I need to know." He smiled, hugged me and said, "I'm here with you right now, son. And I always will be. I love you." I woke up suddenly and as I did, I saw a very light shadow. Had it not moved, I wouldn't have seen it. It was a head and shoulders, leaning through the doorway and into my room. As soon as I saw it, it quickly moved away and backed out of my room. Somehow it was calming rather than scary. I was absolutely amazed, because that's exactly what my dad used to do when I was little and he left really early for work. He'd pop his head in and say goodbye. The way this shadow moved was exactly the same. I'm convinced it was him checking in on me. If that wasn't strange enough, my mum called me downstairs that same morning. She tells me to go into the living room and look at the floor. I go in and guess what? Dad's reading glasses have somehow ended up slap bang in the middle of the room. That 110% confirmed it for me. I don't experience anything like this ever nor believe in it, but there was this one time. There a cabinet near the top of my staircase and I had placed my water bottle on it, not on the edge but in the middle where in no way would it be able to fall off on its own or due to any breeze. I'm sitting on the couch which is a couple feet away from the cabinet and the water bottle simply flies off the cabinet like someone sucker punched it and goes flying down the staircase. I was home alone. It was 1 a.m. and I have no clue why it happened. Don't want to think about it, I just keep living my life. I was maybe like 8 or 9, maybe 10. I was at one of my friend's houses. I used to be good friends with her, and I needed to go to the bathroom. I got in there and I saw a hand reach out from behind the shower curtain. I looked behind it and her cat was there. It wasn't a cat paw I saw though, it was a full-on human hand with no human behind it. I don't think I've experienced anything as scary as that. When I was younger, about 6th grade, and moving to a new city, my mother and I were looking at new houses. After a long day of going house to house, we found one that my mum and I instantly fell in love with. When it was time to go into one of the last rooms, we all walked in and I remember walking into this small pale blue room and getting this weird feeling throughout my body and had to run outside and throw up. My mom and realtor followed and that's when she asked how we knew what happened, and then my mum confused said, "Knew what?" And then she told my mum that someone had just recently died in that room. I still have dreams about that room. Just to clarify, this happened a long time ago, so my memory may not be completely correct. It was on a dark and early winter evening. My parents were at work and my brother was busy doing some school work. The house was completely silent apart from the TV downstairs. I had some homework to do in my bag, so I went to my room and looked into my bag to find my homework. I took the sheet and my pencil case and went to shut the blinds in my room as it was dark. I took a quick look out of the window, and across the street near a lamppost I saw a man wearing dark clothes and his shadow following him. I looked outside our front door and saw what I think was a tricycle rolling down the hill we were on. I looked towards the top of the hill to see if anyone was chasing it and saw no one. I looked back, didn't see the tricycle and saw the man's shadow moving towards us, but not the man. I ran downstairs, locked the door and asked my brother if he saw anything outside. He looked at me as if I was stupid, but he said he didn't.